On this week's show, the Georgia Southern Eagles finally strap on the pads and get things underway for week 2 of their preseason practice. We'll also check in and see how things are developing at the wide receiver position. All that and more as we welcome you inside the Eagles Nest. And welcome inside the Eagles Nest. I'm your host, Josh Aubrey, being joined by Mike Anthony, Georgia Southern beat writer and sports editor for the Statesboro Herald. And Mike, getting closer and closer to the first game of the season as the Eagles host Savannah State. Right now, I guess the big questions are how the health of the team looks, as they get closer and closer. How are the positions that are still kind of up for grabs right now looking? And, basically the quarterback situation. Who do we think is, going to be taking the majority of the snaps, or is it going to be down the middle? Not a lot of answers for a lot of those questions, unfortunately, but your thoughts on where the Eagles are week 2 of the preseason practicing.
Well, right now, it's still pretty early, but a lot of the Eagles, as you mentioned, are kind of hanging around the trainers, some bumps and bruises. Georgia Southern going pretty hard after it. We saw it in the spring. We've seen it again, a couple of early practices the first week of camp in just shells, but that's now ramped up. It's full pads. They're going full bore after it, and that's because of another point you brought up where the depth chart stands. And Coach Tyson Summers, like many coaches, will say that just about everything's up for grabs. Of course, some of the names that are returning for a third, even fourth year as starters or contributors on this team. We know what they can do. We expect to see those names running wild throughout the season, but other positions, a couple of spaces on the offensive line, a lot of spaces in the defensive secondary, all up for grabs. And a lot of times you look to guys with the most experience, maybe some backup opportunities in previous seasons. You don't really have that. A lot of freshmen, redshirt freshmen, competing to fill those holes vacated by last year's seniors.
We've heard a lot about the differences in the mentality and the thoughts of how you run practice, how they're going to be running the games. When you get a new coaching staff, traditionally it's not going to be the same situation year in and year out, especially if most all, except for maybe one, I think are different than what we've seen in the past. One of the big philosophy differences in Coach Summers and Coach Fritz is to do with the practicing. Fritz was maintaining that you wouldn't tackle to the ground. He said that's the way they do it in the NFL. He said he felt like that would eliminate a lot of the injuries that tend to creep up. We've seen coaches be successful with both. Coach Monken was more of the same mindset as Coach Summers, where you tackle, you hit hard, you're doing that all the time. There were a little bit more injuries with Monken than there were with Fritz. Was that the only reason? Probably not. There was probably some luck involved as well, but Coach Summers is tending to go more back to the way things were with Monken, with a little more hard-nosed practices. Your thoughts?
And it's important to note that correlation doesn't mean causation.
Exactly.
Yes, there are some more bumps and bruises, but that's just as liable to happen in a game as it is in practice. The ground doesn't get any softer on Saturday afternoon, so as you mentioned, a lot of it just kind of blind luck. We've seen just as many injuries from stepping the wrong way as we have from, a linebacker having some friendly fire hitting one of his own running backs. So right now, I don't think that there's anything to get too upset about. We're a long ways away from the first game of the season, and when the season gets started, if something were to happen, it's next man up. You've got to go to whoever's ready to step up, whether that happens in practice, in a game. There's over 100 guys in uniform right now, only 22 of them playing at any single time, but everybody else has to be ready to make an impact if they're called.
Well, Mike, we had a chance to talk with head coach Tyson Summers, and one of his concerns, oddly enough, is that at least as far as the defensive backs and the secondary goes, they, in his opinion, aren't quite hitting hard enough.
I think it's going well. We've taken a little bit more time to do walkthroughs and teach periods. All of the installation is in, so we don't have anything else to put in. We've got to fine-tune what we're doing on each side of the ball. We've got to make sure that we don't ever lack in effort and lack in fundamentals. But, it's hard. Today's day 10. It's hard. It's hard, it's hot, and we're not going to take a step back because it's hard and it's hot. We've got to be able to understand that that's when we've got to be at our best.
Anything in particular that you're a little concerned about at this point?
Well, I think right now the thing that bothers me the most looking out there is, our secondary not wanting to go hit anybody. We go through it, and not to say they're not a talented group. They're communicating like they need to. I think that we're doing a much better job in pass coverage. But right now we're in a situation where our secondary, they look like they're scared. And that makes me scared. We've got to be able to have guys that are physical back there with what we do, particularly with our safeties. And we've got to be able to have some guys bring on and have some leadership. But our toughness has got to get better at that spot.
Anything in particular that you're really pleased and maybe you feel like you're a little ahead of where you thought you'd be?
Well, I think we're ahead in the passing game. I do think that, and I think that we're ahead in our special teams game. Probably the most improved group, in my opinion, to this point in time, is the offensive line from spring till now. I think that they've done a really nice job, and I think a lot of it has to do with the work and the leadership that they put in all summer long. And they are by far the most improved group to me.
Well, Mike, one of the big things when you look at this year's roster kind of stands out, a little more receivers in the program necessarily than there are running backs. Traditionally, maybe a little bit more running backs than receivers. I don't know if that points to any philosophy down the road or just the fact that the running back situation looks pretty good on paper. Receivers, there's probably a little bit more depth there, a lot more chances for players to get an opportunity to play this year. Your thoughts on the receivers this year around for Georgia Southern?
Well, Georgia Southern's never had any problem getting great running backs into camp, getting them to sign letters of intent. They knew that they had 3 of them that are great already coming back. Actually 4, you count in Chaz Thornton.
Right.
He's also back, so they knew they had a full stable. The last 2 years, they've really made an emphasis of going out and getting some wide receivers, whether or not the passing game is chucking the ball around a lot more this season. They're at least going to have more options to throw to. A lot of returning options as well. B.J. Johnson, the leading receiver from last year, impressively enough, after missing almost half the season with an injury. Maybe that's more of an indictment on how little or ineffectively Georgia Southern threw it, but he'll be a big target again this year. A great possession receiver, enough speed to take the ball on some pitches, throw some blocks. I've talked to him in the past. He likes getting physical. He likes getting in the faces of other defensive backs. And then along with him on the starting front, Monte Crockett, Miles Campbell, both of them contributors last year. Campbell's one guy I would keep my eye on. I really want to see him loose in an open field, maybe returning a kick, maybe getting a ball on a slant, a screen, something like that. He can really fly. Tough to find him. He's one of the shorter guys out there, but if he can get the ball in his hands in a little bit of open space, I'd love to see what he can do. And then behind them, you've got, as I mentioned, a great recruiting class, a couple of freshmen that can make immediate impacts.
That's right. One of those, Michael Jackson, I saw make a couple of good catches in the practice the other day. Well, we had a chance to talk with head coach Tyson Summers and a couple of the guys you just mentioned about how the receivers look this year.
I think when I see the receiver group, I see very confident guys. We put in work each and every day, and we're a real confident group, and we're just coming out here working. And I just feel like we're going to make some plays this year. Each day we come out on the field, we're competing. Everybody's competing. Jobs aren't set. So each and every day, everybody's coming out to compete, and we're pushing each other. I'm a small guy. We got some big guys, fast guys. But I think the most key thing, is leadership. We got a great group of leadership, a great group of guys that lead us, and like in BJ and Croc, and I think they do a good job.
We're getting called on a lot more to make plays out wide, which is what we've been asking for and what we want. So, our role has changed a little bit. I feel like our strengths, we got a lot of guys that can run. We got Miles Campbell, Malik Henry, Monte Crockett. We got a couple of Michael Jackson, he can run as a freshman. Then you got the other receiver, Naquan Howard can run. Then we have guys like me and Obi and Stretch, bigger physical receivers that can work the middle of the field, catch the ball in traffic. I feel like we're in a good place, but it's still got a long way to go before we get to where we want to and get the whole offense gelling.
We've got some older guys that are really talented. That group that's in their second year with Malik Henry and Naquan Howard and those guys, they're really, really talented. And so, as we sit there and go through it, we feel like one of our more talented spots is that. Well, they've got to be able to do a lot of different things. They've got to be guys, first of all, that can think and understand what we have. Certainly guys who've got to be able to block downfield, but we also do a good bit of opportunities for them to have the ball thrown too. Part of the offense is built to where if there's 9 in the box, we're not going to sit there and try to run it up in somewhere where there's not the ability to. So they've got to be able to do a little bit of it all, and I think that Coach Dean's done a great job of helping them through that. But we've got to see what gives us the best opportunity to win. Certainly we feel like that's a talented spot for us. We have a lot of leadership there, obviously with BJ and Croc. and even with Miles, you know. And so until we get to the point where we feel like we can be, you know, we want to be able to be multiple. We want to be a run team first, but we've got to be efficient and effective when we do throw the ball.
Well, Mike, some football-related things coming up. They're going to have a scrimmage on Saturday, followed by their annual Fan Fest. Football taking place, as well as volleyball and soccer, men's and women's soccer, going to be out there as well at Paulson Stadium. Also, day one is supposed to be taking place Monday night. I think it's rained just about every single time.
Day one has a bad habit of turning into day 5 or day 6, but as of right now, it is still day 1.
All right, and that's scheduled for Monday night at Paulson Stadium as well. Well, that'll wrap things up for now. For Mike Anthony, I'm Josh Aubrey. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again next week.